an international travel spots these things. You there? See that four? Balcony yesterday, after we left Napier, sailing along those cliffs, one solitary bird, it wasn't an albatross, but it was a big bird, and it just glided in front of me right down there for easily half an hour. It just flapped its wings, then glided, flapped its wings, then glided, looking for a fish from the wake, and it's great to watch. I took the binoculars out and just watched it for ages and just wondered at the awesomeness. 1988, 89. 2.5 years, but I was prepared to drive for 6 years. Volkswagen headquarters in Germany would have sponsored me, because in Volkswagen Brazil I had the whole van completely rebuilt. I went there as a photojournalist, so I just exchanged a whole bunch of photos, and then I asked for a rebuild in exchange. And they did it twice, gave me a brand new engine, new suspension, and tyres and everything else, and got me onto national TV. And a promise from the vice president that he would put me on a car carrier to Europe free of charge. To Europe, that's how I got across the Atlantic. 12 days on a car carrier. One of hundreds of stories. But I was just saying, Jonathan, that this is like Alaska, although I haven't seen dead trees like that in Alaska. This is very similar to Alaska and even British Columbia. It's just like that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, just like this. Yeah. You've got whales and see more wildlife. And you had all these classic fishing villages like Petersburg and Ketchikan. I did it all with ferries. So instead of driving, I drove up along the Trans-Alaska Highway, and then I took the ferries through the Inside Passage to all the towns, like Haines and Havana. I'd just get off at the next town, like Sydney, for example, and explore, get on the ferry, go to Juneau, get off, go to Ketchikan and Wrangell and each town. Well, I did it on the smell of an oily rag, actually, because when I was modelling in New York City, at one point I was up for the Camel cigarette contract for $1.1 million US back in 1982 dollars. That's like $15 million today. I didn't get the contract, but I got $60,000. And it took 13 months for them to decide. So in those 13 months I had to decide what I wanted to do, because part of the contract meant that I was only allowed to work 60 days a year for them. So I had 300 days a year free. Oh my God. So I thought, okay, I'll buy myself the best camper van that there is, and it didn't come out, so I bought myself the cheapest camper van that there was. And plus I got caught in the 87 stock market crash, so I lost bunches of money. So I just had to do it really cheaply. But when you're doing it really cheaply, you have to laterally think. And for example, as a result of talking to the international art director of Camel cigarettes, it gave me the confidence to talk to the international art director of VW in Brazil. And in the end, I drove away there 2 weeks later with a completely rebuilt van at no cost to me, and it promised to get on a ship to Europe. And I did the rest of South America, and it was just amazing.
They didn't have YouTube back then.
No, well, I've got a YouTube channel. That's what I'm doing.
Okay. I have to get your channel.
It's Train Lord. Train Lord.
Lord, L-O-R-D.
Yeah.
Train, T-R-A-I.
Yeah, train. Because I have a train layout in my house, and I'm a member of a train layout. That's right in front of. Pardon?
Does it have your travel info?
Yeah. I've just come back from the Philippines. I've got a Filipino wife, so we go to the Philippines every couple of years, and so I film all that. And we go to so many different islands. no one goes into the station building because we have the station building for a train layout. But right alongside, like I've seen this ship dock alongside us at the railway station where we have our pub layout. And I got on board it and went to Sydney on it. So this is my second cruise on this ship. Yeah.
So what do you mean full layout?
HO scale, yeah. The trains are about that long. Yeah. They're great. Well, these days they are the ones. Yeah, the ones with sound, and we get them with sound, smoke, and, radio chatter, etc., etc. It's pretty amazing. There's a bunch of guys older than me still doing this. Everyone who's usually into doing these things, they grew up with steam trains. I just saw the tail end of it when I was a youngster.
Oh, interesting. So you went over to Europe, and where did you start when you got over there?
The ship went to Salerno in Italy. And then I did Italy, and then into Switzerland and Germany, and then I met a Mexican girl in Mexico City, and I invited her over. So she came with me and out of London, and we did all of England, Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. And I wanted to visit all the castles and palaces and battlegrounds, etc. That there's hundreds of them. And so I thought, well, how can I do this? Because remember, I'm doing this on the smell of an oily rag. I lost all my money, so I'm laterally thinking again. And I had a lady friend of mine in Holland, and I'm being Dutch as well. She said to me, why don't you write a story and sell it to the Dutch magazine? And okay, there's a computer upstairs. I'd never played with a computer at that stage. So I single-fingered typed a little story and drove to Amsterdam, and they bought it for 1,000 guilders, which was good at that time, about $1,000, and they gave me a photojournalist card. So when I got to England, I paid £3.50 to go and see Dover Castle. And I thought, gee, I've got hundreds to see. I can't do this. So I found out who runs Dover Castle. It's the National Trust. So I went there and I got a National Trust card from them, showing my photojournalist card, and so that allowed me to get into all National Trust places. And then I went to Hastings, the Battle of Hastings, and that was English Heritage. Okay, so I had to go to London and get a letter from English Heritage, and then in Scotland it was Scottish Heritage, and in Ireland it was Irish Heritage. So I got into all these palaces and in the meantime my Mexican girlfriend with me, who I ended up marrying when my van was stolen, and I have a son to her. So we got into all these places for free and just free camped in those days. You could free camp everywhere. It was just so easy. It was just so free. And before I did that journey, when I was 20, I hitchhiked around the world for 4 years. When I was a youngster, and went to Holland on a passenger ship, the old America. You've heard of the SS United States?
No, I've not heard of it.
You've never heard of the SS United States, and you're American?
No.
What are you? You can't be American. It's the fastest passenger liner that's ever existed, and it was America's way of trying to compete with the British and the Germans and the French for the transatlantic trade before aeroplanes. And once the jet engine came about, well, then that was the end of the Queen Mary and the Queen Elizabeth and all these classic passenger liners. And anyhow, the America is the smaller version of it, and it was the earlier one. And that was sold to the Greeks, and they called it the SS Australis, and that with a bunch of other old classic American passenger liners. The Greeks bought them up, and then they brought immigrants to Australia and New Zealand on these things. Then they brought people from Australia and New Zealand back to Europe to visit their home country, and so I was on board for 5 weeks going to Holland and visited my grandfolk, and then worked on river barges in Germany and Holland, and then hitchhiked all the way to the North Cap of Europe, across to North Africa, and then I went from Europe back to Australia overland to Afghanistan and Pakistan and India when we could, Iran, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Thailand, all these things. And the smell of an oily rag also. No. privileged. I feel privileged.
So what was like the weirdest place you were or the most scary?
Well, it was a cold winter's night, and I walked to the border of Yugoslavia from Italy after walking with my backpack, 25 kilo backpack for 14 kilometres uphill, and I was exhausted when I got up to the top at the border. And as soon as I got across the border, I wanted a place to sleep, and I just bedded down amongst these bushes. And anyhow, the border guards came to me with rifles and said, "You can't sleep here. You got to go. You got to go." So I had to get up and find another spot, and I did. But yeah, I never got mugged, and yes, you're hungry sometimes, and you're cold sometimes, and lonely sometimes, but in the meantime, you're just chalking up all these life experiences. And it just leaves you.
You ever write a book or anything?
Yeah, I've got a book, Landscapes of 1,000 Days, and that's just mostly about. But I don't. No, you can't. Another long story. My son showed me 10 years ago when I went to the Philippines how Facebook works, because I had no idea. And so he's younger, and he said, "Well, you just put your pictures up there." And I met some girls, etc. in the Philippines, so I thought, okay, I'll put these pictures up to show them. And so he showed me what to do, and I did. And then I saw, you can get friends, and you can click on friends. And okay, I started clicking on some of my New York friend models that I had known in the past. And there was this one French man, a French fellow, Alain Giry. He just died this year, only 70. But he was a classic handsome Frenchman, and he had like thousands of all these friends. And I started looking through, and I saw a picture of this amazingly beautiful woman, and she was German Brazilian, and she was born on the 4th of July. Well, I'm also born on the 4th of July, so I made contact with her, and she wrote, "No, I don't do cyberspace with." Just fair enough. That's cool. She was beautiful, and she was 52 years old and stunningly beautiful, actually. Anyhow, I'd also put my international modelling pictures up on my Facebook page, and the next day she sent me a text. "You look handsome in hats," and I've actually that's on my. Is it on my? Yeah, when you go into YouTube, you see me wearing that hat picture that she made the comment on. And anyhow, I sent her a text, and she said, "Can I call you?" She said, "Yeah." So she called me from Miami for 5.5 hours the first time. The next night, 2.5 hours, and then every single day for ages. And she actually paid for me to fly over to Florida to meet her, and then my son also. She put us on a cruise on the Celebrity Equinox for the Christmas cruise in the Caribbean. She paid all that. Yeah, she was the wife of a wealthy man, but she'd separated from him because he was philandering around. So she was looking for alternative pleasures, and I was the lucky fella, and it was great. But the thing, what I'm getting at is that I told her all about my story, and because she was Brazilian and she was German, and I tried to get a German sponsorship, etc. And I travelled through Brazil, so we had this in common. And she was also building a website, and she wanted me to work for her as the travel section for the website. But she only wanted to. She was catering to the very rich, very rich, like extreme rich, and so I had to do things that had to cater to that aspect. But she also suggested that I should get a book out, and I had taken lots of photographs and slides, and of course I had to.
See him down there about 2 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
I'm boring you, am I?
No,
Because it's a long story. As we sail out of the Sound. Anyhow, we met, and she indeed was very beautiful, and we got on really, really well. But at the end of the day, I'd lost all my money, and how do you cater to a rich woman who was married to a rich man? No money, no honey. And so, that's it. And so she had, and we both had a 13-year-old son each. And well, how are we going to organise that when she wanted his her son to go to some classic Miami University, etc. So if she had hooked up with me, she would have lost all of her husband's money, and therefore that wouldn't have been any good.
Yeah.
So she had to let me go. Anyhow, she was Brazilian, and this was 2011, and she said, look, in 2012, I think it is, Brazil's got the Olympics, and then 2014 the World Cup, or something to that effect, those dates. Why don't we get this book out and market it to Brazil and also to all of South America, after all you've travelled all through there, and then do it in English. And I feel quite sure that, so we did get the book. I spent money on getting it graphically designed. She actually sent me $3,000 to get it graphically designed, and it's a beautiful book, and each book cost $200 to get. But at that time I didn't know much about ebooks. Had I known, I would have had it organised so that it could go into ebook as well, and then I could have made money, and then I could have had it published. But I just had a hard coffee table book made, and classic big photographs. So it's a beautiful. Everyone who's seen the book says it's just a beautiful book, beautiful pictures, etc. And I wrote the story, etc. But each book at that time cost $200 each to print. So I had 5 printed, sent one to VW Brazil, got 2, and so on. And I was intending to go back to be with her and go to Sao Paulo to Volkswagen Brazil together with her. And I feel pretty sure that had we turned up together, with her beauty and ability to talk and my enthusiasm, we probably got that published. But she broke up with me a month before we were supposed to do it, and so it never happened.
How'd you meet your current wife?
And so as a result of that, when she broke up, I thought, well, what I'm going to do? I had a friend of mine who lived in Adelaide, and he was going to the Philippines to basically live, and he said, you got these dating sites called Date in Asia, just go on there and see if you can find yourself a floozy on there. So I went there 3 or 4 times and met the odd one here, and then I met Arlene on there, and she's on the board. She's probably